Then we come to security auditing. Security auditing is nothing but an internal check that is carried out by internal auditors. That means people who are employees within the organization to find out flaws in the organization's information system. Now, this is more on the compliance side. This may take inputs from the vulnerability assessment and the penetration test, but overall we want to see what kind of policies that we have in our organization, whether those policies are working properly, whether they make sense, are there any gaps, and based on the technical inputs from the VAPT team, how do we map with the policies that we have defined for that organization. For example, a password policy. Now, we have documented that a password policy should be effective enough that passwords cannot be easily brute forced. So that's a high level policy. Then we dictate a procedure for that policy to be implemented, where we say, hey, we want the systems to be configured where the password meets some complexity standards. For example, should be uppercase and lowercase A through Z, 0 through 9, should use special characters, and should be randomized password, should not be dictionary based or based on the user's name. Now, this is the policy that we have created and the procedures that we have defined. Are they being actually implemented in the real world? So a vulnerability analysis would determine whether the passwords are probably weak or not. So if the vulnerability report comes back and says the passwords are probably weak, then a penetration tester would go in and then try various attacks to see if passwords can be compromised. And if yes, they would then look at the complexity of the passwords, compare it to the procedures and the policies. And if they do not match, that's where your security auditing comes into the picture. So you're basically tying up the policy, the procedures, and the actual implementation that you have created in an organization. Now, first and foremost, what is cybersecurity? There are three main pillars of cybersecurity that we deal with since the inception of computers. And they're known as the confidentiality, integrity, and availability triad. Also known as CIA. Not to be confused with the American Intelligence Agency, but here we're looking at three different pillars where we want our data to remain confidential, the integrity of that data to be intact, and the data to be made available at all points in time. So let's talk about these three aspects. The principle of confidentiality asserts that the information and functions can be accessed only by authorized parties. So, for example, even if you password protect your file, what is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to prevent other users accessing your data and peeping into your files so that your data remains confidential. It is only shared with people who know the password. Integrity. This is where the trustworthiness of that data comes into the picture, where if the data is going to be changed, for example, you have a spreadsheet which has a lot of information about users and their login activities and whatnot, and you want to ensure that that data is not modified by any unauthorized user. So you're going to verify that the information is correct and is not modified by anybody who's unauthorized. The availability part ensures that this data is made available to all authorized users when and where they want it, right? The principles of availability assert that in systems, functions, and data must be available on demand according to agreed upon parameters based on levels of service. Now, this is where your service level agreements would come in. For example, when we log on to Gmail, we always assume that Gmail is going to work and is going to be available online. At no point in time, or very few times, has it ever occurred that you have gone onto the internet, typed in gmail.com, and the website is not available. In fact, if the website doesn't open, we figure out the internet is not working, right? But Gmail as a service is always made available. Now, when we talk about threats to CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, we talk about them in two different parameters, cybercrime and hacking. So, what is cybercrime? Cybercrime is any criminal activity or any unauthorized activity that would involve the usage of any computing device which would result as a security incident at the victim's end. Most cybercrimes are carried out in order to profit from them. Criminals would try to do phishing attacks to steal your money out of your bank accounts, or would try to con you into giving out your credentials, thus compromising your email accounts or your social media accounts, and try to gain access to your identity. Cybercrimes are generally carried out against computers or devices directly to damage or disable them, spread malware, steal secret information, etc. So this talks about the motivation part of cybercrimes. What would be the motivational aspect for a person to conduct such an activity, right? So basically to cause damage, like WannaCry happened in 2017. The perpetrators, those used WannaCry, probably gained a lot in the ransom that they demanded for that data to be decrypted, but it also cost the world a lot of money in profits that were lost.